Hey guys, it's Tombox here. Welcome to MST.TV, and of course, the Banlist finally has arrived to TCG for May 21st of 2018. When that's active, we're moving on to a whole new format. Is it a whole new format though? I personally don't think so. It's like a half new format because only half of the decks kind of died, and it's going to be kind of interesting. It's going to simplify the game a bit more because it does kill off a couple decks, but some decks will survive and their dynamics will change. But that's just my take on it right now. I know I'm definitely not one of the first ones to upload this because I'm not part of that race. I was at work, so instead I am going to give you an in-depth analysis from the meta breakdown. What are the powerhouses moving forward? What are the plays that you no longer have to worry about because, well, you don't actually have to dedicate side deck spaces to some of these plays anymore. And trust me, Masterpiece was one card that a lot of people dedicated some form of side deck space for. And what are some of the plays that are going to survive moving forward? And we should probably expect more of it and perhaps how it's going to evolve further. And that's what my video is about for the ban list. But I will go through each and every one of these cards, except for probably the stuff that got released, especially when those that don't have exactly a lot of impact. Those are just like, hey, freebies from Konami, here you go. Those ones I'll breeze through, but anything that has major impact, I will elaborate a bit more on. And well, I guess let's get into this list. And if you guys enjoy my videos and want to help support this channel, you can help support me down on my Patreon. I really appreciate all of you guys. Thanks to the Patreon, help me get all my tournament going on. And huge shout outs to Imperium Duelist for providing huge major prizing for that tournament. Okay, to kick things off, we'll go into the ban stuff. I'm going to be looking down every now and then because I did write everything down on paper just in case I forget anything. So starting off with the major hit 2, Pendulum Magicians and Pendulum decks in general, Astrograph Sorcerer has been banned, put to 0. In other words, first of all, we lose a level 7 monster. In other words, you don't have to worry about the Vortex combo anymore because the Vortex isn't going to come out. You're not going to go into Absolute and then go into Vortex. That takes away kind of 2 levels worth of play right there. And on top of that, another Pendulum card that did get hit. Well, not specifically Pendulum, but more specifically towards Dark Pendulum monster. We did lose Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. This monster was extremely powerful, but on top of that, it also facilitated and was a key piece to the FTK. And you know how Konami is when it comes to an FTK, they like to completely overkill it. And that overkill is complete right here. You have both the Astrograph Sorcerer and the Starving Venom basically both removed from the game. Key players of the deck are removed. So what does this impact? First of all, Onyx Vortex, of course, I just mentioned. Zephyrs are also losing a little bit of consistency coming from the Astrograph Sorcerer. And Astrograph Sorcerer kind of just is an all-round hit towards Pendulum decks. This makes Electromite a lot weaker as well. I don't think the Electromite is going to be completely irrelevant due to the fact that potentially future Pendulum cards can come out, and when future Pendulum cards come out, then Electromite will be a lot better, especially if they have targets just as good as Astrograph. So don't fret if you did buy Electromite. There is a potential chance that it will go back up in the near future, but for now it is going to tank down Electromite quite a bit for now. And well, that's one of the main things, like Zephyrs, Pendulum Magicians, Pendulum FDK. These are the major hits from here. Now we have Masterpiece. Of course, this is mainly just a solo hit targeted towards True Draco. With Masterpiece, kind of like the boss monster, is a Trident with a bigger body and immunity. This monster is very hard for many decks to deal with, and they require to basically overpower it if it's a spell monster immune, or perhaps they need some way around it if the monster is, say, monster trap immune. Basically a huge body, very difficult to deal with, and the once per turn pop is one of the major advantage plays that this card can offer. With that gone, it does change it up, but Konami made it a give and take relationship for the True Draco. They may have taken away this Masterpiece. We still have Metaltron if we really want to play immunity, and it also acts as a pseudo Waking the Dragon. Of course, that one costs a lot more to play, and that is why it's not as good. A little bit more sacky, a bit harder to actually get off, but losing Masterpiece is a huge loss. But again, they did do this for the reason of changing up how True Draco is played. And I'll go into the other cards of True Draco on this ban list regarding that. But one additional thing that I would like to point out is that it took away a side card from Altergeist. Altergeist cited this for the mirror match for some people because it's actually very difficult to deal with a trap monster immune Masterpiece. Basically, nothing in the deck can handle this unless you can throw a kaiju on it. And if you don't get to that kaiju, one side is definitely putting the other side on a timer. Ancient Fairy Dragon got banned, and I think this is mainly hitting towards the
the field spell of Dragon's Revenge, Destrudo, and Darkworm, and that also hurts the ABC deck because ABC required this card to combo getting the Dragon's Ravine into, say, the Union Hanger, and that is not exactly going to be an option anymore, so you might have to actually work around with the Nightmare Link monsters to just try to get there. It requires more bodies, and the free summon that this offered was what kind of kept the ABC deck going, and well, now that that's gone, we'll have to change it up a bit, I guess. New combos to discover, that's what I'm going to go with. Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. This is an FTK. It's just a plain FTK. Removing this card because this card is free summon. It's not once per turn on the summon and can summon using its own effect. So based on that, it's not gonna live, and it is basically removed. Basically, you burn your opponent to death with a Topologic and this one monster. 800 damage per burn. So that is very devastating. Again, Konami knocking down some of the degenerate plays. This is the Zexal. Zexal basically locks people out of everything. And this is the one card to get access to that, and that is basically gone. I don't think any other decks are completely affected unless you're playing like Raid Raptors or something like that. Not exactly a huge impact towards anyone else aside from the Zexal lockout. That grass looks green. I can't say I was completely surprised to see this, but I was a little shocked when I saw this card here because it kills off 60 card decks. I know there are some 60 card decks that don't play this and they're still okay, but in my opinion, taking this card out removes the teeth out of 60 card decks because this was the one card that we all feared. This is the fear factor card of, oh my god, should I Ash this card? What if he has grass? It made people hold on to their Ash Blossoms for some of the bigger priority cards because you could hit them with an Ash on the Brilliant Fusion, which is still very devastating. But then if they back it with this card in particular or Left Arm Offering, that just means they are going to kill you regardless. In other words, this was a much worse target to let them resolve than the Brilliant Fusion. And I don't know what I can say about this, but this is removing one of the bait targets. So in other words, the follow-up play has been removed. So I'm not sure if 60 card decks are even still a thing anymore with this gone. I'm pretty sure Asian Persuasion can probably give us a better detail regarding this because he does play 60 card decks. And well, you can check out his channel regarding what he thinks on the ban list as well. But taking this card out, I do feel a bit bad, but I don't know. I lost all my copies for some reason. I can't find them, so I guess I kind of got affected a little. And that's basically the ban stuff, and I'll go over the meta stuff afterwards, but let's go into the limited. Now, returning to 1, now this is what I meant by they're giving us some cards back for True Draco, and they've actually given us even more cards, which I will talk to you guys in a bit about, which is the Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Combatant. Is it Combatant or True Draco Fighter? Whatever it is, this guy is absolutely necessary in the deck, and it was banned for a good reason because it was able to search traps. But the trap lineup right now is very small. We only have 4 traps available for him to play directly onto the field. And that is the True Draco Return, or True King's Return, and 3 copies of the True Draco's Apocalypse. Being able to search out the traps is actually very vital right now. You get to use the popping effect, and being able to dig out the trap card of True King's Return without using Diagram. I think that's actually very crucial and adds a level of consistency. And on top of that, we've been given back Ignis as well, which is the card that got released back to 3. That just makes it so that you can quickly dig out the Disciples and quickly dig out the True King's Return or Apocalypse so that you can actually cycle your cards a lot faster. So I think it's actually adding a level of consistency while taking away the big power play of the boss monster. But you can still technically play Metaltron if you really want that immune big boss monster that also follows up with an extra deck monster. Yeah, that's still an option that I think that Konami wants to push forward. So I don't think True Draco is exactly dead. Then we have, oh my god, the worst card to get hit on this ban list. I can't believe they took away this card because this is one of those powerful cards in the game. Chain Strike. Actually, I don't know if this card actually has very much impact aside from people that playing Chain Burn. Of course, Chain Burn, did, win Worlds for the Dragon Duels. So, Ryan, for the Canadian Duelist, he did win Worlds with Chain Burn. Well, I guess losing a Chain Strike, perhaps it's a major hit. Another hit towards FTKs. This is Gem Knight Master Diamond. Now, I actually predicted this one in my ban list, saying that Diamond's going to go to 1. Apparently, he is going to 1, which is, obviously a fluke on my part. But the reason why I can see this is because if you hit Diamond,
you can actually prevent your opponent from going into VFD, because putting out 2 diamonds, remember, he's level 9, you get 2 diamonds, get out of VFD, your opponent still can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! It's in the similar line of play like playing Zexal against your opponent. Being able to shut down your opponent from being able to play completely, yeah, that hurts. Of course, this also takes away the FTK, but you can still burn your opponent a bit with the original Lapis Lazuli, and then maybe you can just sit on this. So now you actually have to use regular Lapis Lazuli if you still want to burn your opponent. But I'm kind of glad that the FTKs are kind of moving out of the game right now. So that's it for the limited, but we also have semi-limits. We have Towers. Towers-esque monster isn't exactly the biggest threat anymore thanks to the release of Kaiju's, Winged Dragon Raw Sphere mode, Utopia the Lightning. There's just so many ways to beat over this guy. However, he is still one of the best ones, mainly due to the fact that there's not a lot of monster cards that do affect this card, but he is affected by links. That means it's pretty easy to remove him, say with a Unicorn. A Nightmare Unicorn can just throw Towers away, so yeah, there's that. But getting there perhaps might be a bit harder. Towers is an automatic +1 if he does get his effect off, and you can easily summon him off with like Cliff's End since it counts as 3 tributes, and that's pretty nasty. And of course, he does reduce all monsters on your opponent's side of the field by like 500 attacking defense, which is pretty deadly, I would say. Basically putting it at the same stats as Ultimate Falcon, except, you know, through an effect. But Ultimate Falcon obviously a little bit stronger. Now, I do want to talk about Ring of Destruction a little. Since Ring of Destruction was available to us for some time now, but it wasn't really played, I think Ring of Destruction at 2 might see a little bit more play due to the fact that it is a 1-for-1. And a lot of the trap cards, and I will talk about this later at the end of the video, there are certain trap cards that do fall out of favor because of all the hits that happen. There are certain cards that you don't need to run anymore, and those decks are basically not as relevant anymore. And this card could technically fill that position. Think about Trick Stars. Trick Stars could utilize this to shorten the damage range that it needs to do to actually put your opponent down to 0. And I think it's actually a good 1-for-1 choice overall. It is just a trap card. 1-for-1s aren't too bad. Of course, to most people, 1-for-1 cards just aren't good enough in this day and age in Yu-Gi-Oh! But hey, if you can steal a game or shorten the range just for that OTK, I think it might be worth it. Especially as the 2-of, it's not exactly a sack card. You can just incorporate it into your combos, which is what I think Konami's trying to do. Konami's expanding our trap lineup, basically giving us all the traps that they kind of took away. Perhaps we're going to see a bit more back row in play now. Now, for cards released from the ban list, let's talk about the most impactful ones here. We have Atlantean Dragoons with Light Aseka. Guess what? The Mermail deck that plays massive links and only plays 3 copies of Light Aseka is perhaps going to be a thing here. And I think it's a really good attempt to give us that diversity in decks. That you might have taken away like 3 decks from us, but maybe Konami is actually trying to reintroduce a couple of decks back in. But this is one step in that direction. A lot of people right now are hunting down Ultimate Atlantean Dragoons. The price of that card has already spiked up a little bit, just so you guys are aware. Now, this card, of course, giving you the Sea Serpent Search. It is amazing, especially when you do it for cost, basically replenishing your hand, and you get to establish big link plays thanks to this one card. I think this is actually quite amazing, especially if you do run like a majority monster deck with Light Aseka. I'm not sure if we actually can compare ourselves with OCG, because right now we don't exactly have Summon Sorceress. A couple of cards are still missing, but that's okay. This is a really welcomed addition to the water lineup. Now we have Grand Soil. Grand Soil, of course, is getting errata in the upcoming Special Ed, and Grand Soil is, of course, once per turn now. So Element Sabers, I guess you can play it. Earth decks, you can get a Monster Reborn. But here's the thing. Monster Reborn's still available to us, so this is a bit of a lackluster Elemental Lord, and all the loops that kind of made it banned, well, you can't really loop them anymore, so there you have it. Now we have one of the more amazing cards coming back, having this card at 3. This was the card that broke the Zodiac boards, where you can set a trap and then summon this card out, and your opponent is basically either giving you a Pot of Greed or they are just going to lose their Trident. This was the one card to do so. Now we have Ignis, the Draco Warrior, back at 3. This is really awesome stuff. I'm really looking forward to this card coming back. So it is going to shift the playstyle of True Draco a little bit. Remember, if you have 3 Maidens, which are all level 5s, and you have 3 Ignis, which are also level 5, you get to play rank 5s. I'm not sure if you really want to go in that direction, or perhaps you want to go play the I guess the skill drain play, which is the Monarchs Erupt. If you want to go in that direction, that's also available, but it's going to be a much faster, much more consistent, because remember, Dynamite Knight searches your traps, this guy searches your spells. You can actually cycle your cards much faster now. But it does trade off with, of course, Masterpiece. Mathematician. I don't know what I think about this card right now. It seems to me it's a little lackluster. You get to foolish anything into the graveyard at the cost of your normal summon. I don't know. It only sounds level 4, sorry. But, like, it doesn't seem like he's fast enough in this day and age for the meta anyway. Like, destroying him by battle to gain you 1 draw, it does sound good on paper. Perhaps in a drafty format, he's a pretty good choice. But in terms of what we have now and what decks are doing, we are, like, spamming the board so quickly to the point that getting, like, a card into the graveyard seems like it's only a part of another card's effect rather than the bread and butter of the card effect. So this is a little bit of a side card here. Not exactly ideal right now. Now looking at Neospatial Grand Mole, finally off the list. It didn't deserve the spot right now, but let me just point out this. Grand Mole can break that extra link. Remember, the entire Nightmare extra link is not exactly a reactive one. Is that right? Yeah, they don't have any reaction to what you do. So if you're able to summon out Grand Mole and have it linked to, like, say your opponent's Griffin or whatever, usually the Griffin's in the back, but if you actually get out Grand Mole and usually punch out one of the parts of the extra link, you break the entire extra link. So you can punch out whatever the card effect, the Cerberus, then you can Raigeki, you can punch out, say, the Phoenix, and then use it to break the rest of the board, really, because you can summon out big monster. Remember, Nightmares don't exactly have any reactionary effects, so that is something to consider. And having Grand Mole available, we already technically had Grand Mole available, but I'm just saying that with Grand Mole back at 3, perhaps we might see more people play it. And finally, the last card to come back to 3. This one I also believe I've mentioned as a card that could go back to 2 or 3, and Konami's just giving it all back. Compulsory Evacuation Device, one of the best one-for-ones for the extra deck because it just completely removes the threat. I think this is a really great addition, and I think Altergeist might consider it as a tech option. Being able to remove, say, your opponent's card or use it as a flex choice to bounce back your copy of Multi-Faker and immediately re-triggering it, and basically it's a protective tech card for the Altergeist Multi-Faker. Because if you can actually get the protection, so your opponent's like, oh, I'm gonna TT the board, use Compulse, bounce it back to your hand. New Chain, Multi-Faker activates, put him back on the board, get a Silkitus onto the field, and guess what? You still have a bounce against your opponent. So this is actually a decent choice, and you can also use it to interrupt combos. Say your opponent just somehow special summon a monster onto the board, they're about to go into their links, or maybe they just went into their links, you just target the card and just bounce it back and get like a 2-for-1 out of it. So there's a lot of value that can come from Compulsion. It's no longer a sack card. Playing 3 copies of something is always like, oh, incorporated into as a part of the deck, rather than be like, oh, it's my tech choice, I just happen to have it. That kind of deal. That's just my opinion regarding the card. So that kind of covers the entire ban list. So 3 cards that I was a bit sad that did not get touched by the ban list. These are cards that did not get touched, whether it was supposed to come back or maybe it was supposed to go away. First one, Scapegoat. Scapegoat is still here. In other words, that is still a card that we should fear. I'm a bit surprised that Maxi didn't come back with all the extra link stuff happening, and we already have Call by the Grave to kind of answer the 1 copy of Maxi that we could probably play. It's just a thing. But yeah, I'm a bit sad that Maxi didn't get touched. And worst of all, Construct didn't come back. They gave us the Shadow Constructed Link monster. It hinted towards maybe El Shadow Construct was going to come back. No, it didn't. It is still banned, and I guess we'll have to deal with it. So these are just 3 cards I kind of was a little sad that didn't get any sort of impact. And speaking of stuff that didn't get impact, Trick Stars. Of course, you guys that are playing Trick Stars are like standing on top of the mountain right now. That's the joy that you feel for dodging the flood of this ban list. You guys are like in Noah's Ark, man. We're all safe. All the sisters are here singing on that light stage. That's why Trick Stars are gonna be a deck to be reckoned with. Now let's actually go over the meta decks of the coming format. So for the top meta decks in this coming meta, and this is going to be shifting as we develop our meta even further, as it matures a little, starting off with Trick Stars. Trick Stars did not get hit whatsoever, and I am a little bit shocked. I was expecting maybe a slight slap on the wrist for the consistency, but they took nothing away from the deck. So, in other words, they are still at full power, and on top of that, there's Nightmares to be added into the deck, and Nightmares with Trick Stars, let's just say when they go into the Borload combo, it is a lot safer than you think. So with Candina and all that stuff still available, the Draw Lock combo still available, yeah, that is a force to be reckoned with for sure. And I don't know what I would like to think about this. I don't know what I want to say about it because it is one of the deadlier combos coming into the meta. So Draw lock, just be aware of it. You can't just blindly search stuff anymore. Next up, Altergeist. Altergeist with Multi-Figure has proven itself to be one of the better decks right at the release, and of course the deck was not touched. Perhaps the trap lineup is going to change a little, but one thing that made this deck even better is that the True Dracos have basically been removed from the equation. Masterpiece was the biggest threat at its time, and now that that's gone, the Kaijus can hit other targets. Perhaps you don't even need the Kaijus as much against True Draco, so this actually puts it another level higher, making it a bit more difficult to deal with. Perhaps the meta will shift towards targeting this deck. Perhaps people will main deck more cards against Altergeist. Now, I know this deck is not out yet, Brandish Maiden or Sky Strikers, but this is a force to be reckoned with. We know that this deck, this archetype, is going to shape the meta a lot. People are going to be drolling like crazy. People are going to try and stop this engine as fast as possible when it comes out in, well, later in this month, really. So this is another card that is going to shape the meta, and I believe it is going to be one of the highest impact. These are the top 3 decks that I can think of right at this moment. But on top of that, we also have another deck here. Mech Knight Invoked did not get touched as well, and that deck also has a difficult matchup against True Draco, especially with the Masterpiece being spell and monster immune. The Mecha Buzz just weren't good enough. Of course, you still could use the Invoker Alistair to actually boost your guys to run it over, but Masterpiece technically can pop your Megaba, and that made the matchup a little bit awkward for them, and especially when it came to the side deck once the Imperial Iron Walls came in. Yeah, that was a very difficult matchup. However, with that gone, this deck is still alive, full power. The Invoke stuff didn't get touched, the Mech Knights didn't get touched. This is still a very solid option, so whoever that invested into this deck, definitely, you know, hats off to you. But speaking of which, I think True Dracos aren't dead yet. I think there's going to be a shift in this. Perhaps it will be a part of another deck, but the deck does run a bigger line of monsters, and we haven't really seen the interaction of having a Dynamite Knight plus the Amano Iwado. I guess there's no real interaction because Amano Iwado, of course, doesn't let your opponent play the game. That card didn't get touched, so expect that the Demise True Draco might still be a thing for us. It's going to be a very different game because they could probably be a lot more grindy now that they have that consistency. Of course, they don't have as high impact compared to before, and if they do play a bunch of rank 5s, that might change up the playstyle a little, and you perhaps have to think outside of the box to actually deal with this deck. Now, 3 other decks coming up here. First one's Goki Nightmares. I witnessed this deck firsthand. It is very deadly, and with Summon Sorcerers coming on TCG NA, yeah, this is not going to be a very I guess interesting time for, fun time for people that don't know how to deal with this deck. This deck gets a ton of searches. If you do get Droll locked, it does suck because you're not getting search. All the monsters gain searches upon being sent to the graveyard from the field, especially with Rematch being able to really push out links, and with a copy of the Nightmare Ibli. Well, let's just say this deck can perform the extra link combo at a very, very low resource of 2 cards. This is something that we have to be aware of, and it is going to happen. And I've seen this deck happen already. It has already been performing fairly well, especially with all the Nightmare stuff coming out, so that's something to be aware of. And another deck that got rejuvenated thanks to the Nightmares, we have Spiral Nightmare. Because with the 1 field spell, one of the biggest limitations was that you could not use Master Plan. But thanks to Nightmare Unicorn, you can shuffle the card back in, proccing the effect. And you know what? You get a second search. It's all worth it. Even if you don't get that draw, you get the field spell back, and you get your sleeper, and you can perform the Tri-Gate lock. And this time the Tri-Gate Wizard, the co-link that it's going to establish is going to protect it from battle. It's going to protect it from card effects. It is just an overall well-protected package. It is going to be a very interesting time seeing what happens with Spiral Nightmares, especially when it was such a favorite deck in Seattle regionals, and even at MOS, one of the top players played this deck. In fact, there was just like at least four really high, like top 16, there was actually multiples. And the final one here, we have Infernoid Onunku, or I guess this is Lair Infernoid. I think Lair Infernoid is going to come in later into the format, mainly because the Brandish Maiden deck isn't exactly a thing yet, and we don't exactly have a lot of graveyard synergistic deck. I guess we do like to clear off those Mechabuzz, we do like clearing off boss monsters, but of all the decks I've mentioned today in this list, not a lot of them have a boss monster. But because people like to establish that extra link,
being able to banish anything non-targeting is one way to break that extra link, and I believe this is one of the decks that's really good at doing so, thanks to Lair of Darkness. But that's my lineup of the decks for now. I believe the meta will shift, people will develop it, people will mature it, and well, this is just the initial standpoint of where the meta is going from what I can see in this ban list. So for plays that we no longer need to care about, we have Phoenixian Burn, of course, that's banned off, so let's just get rid of that. We also don't need to worry about Gemini FTKs. 3 FTKs were basically removed, and the Pendulum FTK is also removed. We also don't need to worry about Vortex Dragon anymore because it's very difficult to make this card unless they're running like Performable Odd Eyes Dissolver. Zexal plays are basically removed as well, so we don't really have to open it with as many hand traps as needed to stop all these big plays. Now, one monster that we don't have to worry about anymore as a boss monster that can stand alone, win the game, Masterpiece. Out of the question, out of the way. He was so flexible due to the fact that, of course, he can be immune to spells or traps or monsters or a mix of each. And that's why having him removed means that one of the biggest flex choices of True Draco is out of the way as well. For plays that are moving forward, of course, Trick Stars, I'm going to quickly go over this. Draw Lock combo, still a thing. We have to deal with it. And in other words, don't blindly search cards, because if you're playing against a Trickstar player, that Draw and Lock bird is going to shut you out. So just be very careful with that. Then we have the Nightmare combos. The Nightmare Extra Link is still a thing. Any decks that can perform it will perform it, and you're going to be locked out. So beware. Goki's going to do it, and I think there's going to be other decks that move forward that also can do it, like Spirals. And speaking of Spirals, Trigate Wizard with the Spiral Sleeper equipped with the backer, except that this Wizard this time is going to have all the right protection. That's going to make it a very difficult combo to deal with, and they can easily perform it. And as they do it, of course, they are using cards like Phoenix, they're using their Spiral Tough, their Super Agent to clear off your cards before they get there. So it makes it very difficult to stop, especially if they hit the correct cards. And of course, Scapegoat did not get hit as well. In other words, end phase Scapegoat can be a very difficult play to counter, especially with the Nightmare cards. You can go into, say, a Link Karibo or a Link Spider, and then eventually get into a Phoenix to clear back row, go into Cerberus to protect your monster perhaps, or maybe blow up a special summon monster, and you can get all the way into a Borreload a lot safer. That's just what I'm telling you guys right now. It is still a thing, and in other words, you have to be very careful during the end phase as well. That is all I got for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit me up with a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed the analysis. Go ahead and share what you think about the Banlist down in the comment section below. Have a conversation going on down there. The second thing is, subscribe to the MST.TV if you want to see the MOS footage with all the games. Luckily, you know what, here's the best part. Most of the feature match, I'm just saying most because there's one or two that kind of didn't really survive the cut per se, because it does have, say, True Draco in there. Perhaps it did have a little bit of ABC, but most of these games were completely relevant. They are relevant to the current upcoming format, so definitely go get those to check out. Even a lot of the deck lists survived, so I'm really happy with that. Perhaps the side deck choices might change, but look forward to all the deck lists coming out. These are my top 8 deck lists at my tournament. It was a tournament of 64 players with a top 8 single elimination cut, so basically a little mini YCS of mine. And well, definitely check those out. They're coming very soon. I'm just doing all the branding stuff for it. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I love all of you guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.